Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to The Nest. It's October 22nd, 2020, and we're streaming live with investors and entrepreneurs from Africa, North America, Europe, and around the world. For those of you joining for the first time, I'm Jimmy Chu, and our goal here on The Nest is to connect entrepreneurs in frontier markets with angel investors worldwide. We stream live every Thursday, and all episodes are recorded and available on our website, findthenest.org. Today, we have two exciting startups, one making food distribution in Africa more efficient, and the other helping informal retail businesses secure inventory and financing. We'll hear all about them in a second, but before that, let me introduce our partner for this week, Lundy Strome from Nest. Lundy, welcome to The Nest.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Kane, for helping organize this. We're very, very excited to be a partner on The Nest this week. A brief introduction to MEST for any of you who are unfamiliar. MEST is an early stage entrepreneurial training program, seed fund, and network of incubators across the continent. We're based in Accra, Ghana, but we also have hub spaces and incubator networks across Lagos, Nigeria, Nairobi, Kenya, and Cape Town, South Africa. And we basically take the earliest of entrepreneurs, so pre-idea, pre-team entrepreneurs from all over the continent, bring them to Ghana for a year for a training program in business communications and technology. And then they form teams or companies within their cohorts, pitch to us for seed funding, and then join one of our incubators to help them scale. So the two companies that you guys are going to see today graduated from the training program last year in 2019, Kweza and Farmula. So very, very excited to have them on pitching to you guys today, and excited to be here. I also figure because we have such a global audience, if anyone's unfamiliar with the End SARS movement that's going on in Lagos, Nigeria, or across Nigeria right now, please look it up, show your support. It's something that greatly, greatly impacts particularly the technology community and the startup community there. So I figured it would be wrong not to mention that that's going on currently. But
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, and very excited.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that. And those of you who are in Nigeria or have a strong opinion about what's happening in Nigeria, feel free to comment in the comment box about your thoughts. We'd love to hear from everybody about that. And I should say that I've participated in some of the MEST sessions in the past, and we've had some great companies, and hope we have many more opportunities to work together again.
Definitely, me too. Thanks so much.
Well, great. Well, moving on to announcements. So next week, we'll be hosting another session with of Nestcast Live. So if you don't know what Nestcast Live is, the quick intro is that once a month in the Nest time slot on Thursdays, we pull together a panel and discuss a topic relevant to investing in entrepreneurship in emerging markets. Next week, we'll talk about how we can get more local investors in emerging markets involved with funding startups. So join us at the same time, same place on Zoom. Then on November 5th, we will host a session with SunCalp during the SunCalp conference. If you're not familiar, SunCalp is a leading impact investment conference focused on Africa and Asia. And I'm very excited about that session, and we'll have a special link. So if you want to register and join, go to our website, findthenest.org, and you'll be able to do so from there. Now over to some technical tips for the session today. For those of you in the audience, we do want to hear from you. This is an interactive forum, and we've left it open on purpose for questions and comments. So please use that chat box, introduce yourself, talk to others watching the show, make comments, ask questions. We want to hear your insights on these companies, as well as about topical things such as what's going on in Nigeria. So great. Let's go over to the angels and introduce them.
I guess I can start, Jim.
Great.
Happy
Welcome.
to. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really great to be on the panel today. So my background is actually in law and finance. I currently serve as a general partner of a seed stage fund called 18 Ventures with my partner David Meister, who I think had the honor of being on the Nest the prior gathering. At 18 Ventures, we are based in the US. But that said, we are starting to make some investments in emerging markets. We're generalists in focus. We made investments in mobility, infrastructure, the life sciences, ed tech, and fintech. So quite a wide net there. We look to support amazing teams that we think are working on solutions or technologies that could be transformative, and really excited to learn about the companies today and hopefully share a perspective that can be useful. Thanks for having me.
Sure, and your investment scope is quite broad geographically, I understand. So you have investments in different parts of the world, is that right?
That's correct. So our investments are primarily in the US, though we've made a couple investments in Israel and one investment in Africa.
All right, well, moving on to Bruce, would you like to go next?
Happy to go ahead. Very happy to be part of this forum. As Jim said, my name is Bruce Pillay. I'm the investment principal of Chandaria Capital. We're a venture capital fund based in Kenya that invests in pre-Series A investment opportunities. We really look to invest in companies we believe can scale across Africa. So I helped set up the fund. The fund is funded by a high net worth family based here. And we've invested in 15 companies since 2017, with the likes of Kobo 360, Soko Watch, and Trade Depot. And maybe just more background on myself. I love growing African businesses. I was born and brought up in Africa. Did a bit of investment banking in London and Credit Suisse for several years. And then effectively moved back to help create this vehicle to empower the growth of businesses and the growth of African economies. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to see what new ideas are being thought of by the two startups that are pitching today.
Great, well, welcome. So if I understand correctly, you invest both as part of Chandaria Capital and on a personal level, is that correct?
Actually, at the moment, I primarily invest through Chandaria Capital.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Peter, over to you.
Hey, Jim, nice to see you. Nice to see everybody. My name is Peter Ngunyi. Born and raised in Africa, a farmer's kid, grew up milking cows, and just happened to be lucky enough to kind of like go to many different parts of the world to see what's going on there. In Africa, I, 2015-16, was president of a company called Brick, which is one of kind of the most celebrated tech companies out of Africa. And in the last 3 years, I have spent time doing growth strategy and funding interventions for early stage startups. This year, we've done really well, even with COVID, which is something that we're celebrating. A couple of our companies have raised money, some of them even twice this year. So it's kind of like a good year to kind of push a little bit more good vibes into the world. So I'm happy to be here. I invest both as Alibad and myself. Happy to see what's going on in the world. Jim, back to you.
Great. Well, great. Thank you for joining us, and great to see successful entrepreneurs coming back and reinvesting in the continent. All right. Well, great. Thank you, all three of you, for taking the time to be on the panel. Let's head over to the entrepreneurs then. Are you guys both here?
Yes, we are, Jim. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Well, so before we get started, let's go over some of the rules quickly. Each of you will have 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes and only 5 minutes to present, and then another 15 or 20 or so minutes for questions and hopefully some discussion on the deal. We will cut you off at 5 minutes, so please help us respect the time so we can have a good discussion. All right, so who would like to start first? Ibrahim?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. Go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready. I think
all right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ibrahim, and I'm introducing to you the future of food distribution on the continent, Farmula. Now, sometime back in 2018, I and 3 other brilliant individuals met at MEST, and we came up with the concept for Farmula. Rather, they came up with the concept and I believed in their vision. So I joined Farmula. So you're looking at our CEO, who's a contract farmer, Vivian, to Jackie Kimani, our head of product, who we call like a market woman because she literally grew up in markets within Nairobi, to Ahmed Madani, who grew up on his grandfather's farm and ended up building sourcing apps for restaurants in Khartoum, and myself, a farmer. Well, as diverse as we are, one thing is common. We understand a singular problem that's common across our different markets. Open air markets reveal the fragmentation within our supply chains. They necessarily exacerbate the problem, right? So while they provide the largest distribution opportunity for over 60 million farms on the continent, they do not collect any form of data in terms of demand data. Who came to the market? What price were they willing to pay? Which items were they purchasing? And relaying this demand information back to producers, which is necessary for how food moves and ultimately how it's priced. Also, you're looking at the fact that there are poor margins because regardless of the number of players within the chain, it simply just brings premiums to the last mile buyer, right? And at the end of the day, purchases are also inconvenience for retailers who have to close up their shops just to go to the market in order to make their purchases. Our solution is a farm to retail distribution service for food producers. Literally, we're shortening the chain between farmers and retailers and reducing the margins that would affect, and reducing the premiums that would affect their margins. So retailers are able to place orders using the USSD shortcode, a phone call, or interacting with Farmula IO. These orders are routed to our closest distribution centers, which are able to fulfill these orders in under an hour. And each time the inventory within these distribution centers are going low, we restock through automated orders to our partner farmers. And what exactly is IO? It's a virtual assistant that integrates with existing apps like WhatsApp. So a business is able to place an order for food using voice or text, and they're also able to get a history of their purchases and also receipts. Now, IO works directly with our distribution centers, which are manually operated distribution centers, which we use to optimize the way food moves from our partner farmers down to our retailers. It improves the margins because it's manually operated and it's location specific. Now, apart from the better margins which we're able to give to these businesses and the short delivery times, the question is what keeps them coming back. Are able to give them early sampling of every item which we have or every SKU which we have within our distribution centers. And also through referrals from successful customers, we're able to onboard more retailers. We convert them through the calls that they make to us or through their interaction with IO. And each time there's a complaint on how the quality of the produce is, we are able to give them return order management and also give them loyalty points for each time they make a purchase. Now, for every time these businesses make a transaction, we save them, from the amount we save them, we charge them 50% of that, which is on average $3 per transaction. In the future, what we're looking at is the fact that we'll be able to increase our range and significantly increase the amount of money we make per transaction. So far, with 2 asset-light storage facilities and 10 tricycle operators, we've been able to onboard 50 customers, fulfill 2,600 orders, which resulted in $60,000 in revenue. The most important things about Farmula are the fact that we provide key distribution infrastructure, which is necessary to improve how food moves. Our transport services are asset light, which means that we don't own the vehicles, but we're able to deliver on time to our customers. And lastly, we have IO, which is able to understand customers' ordering patterns and improve the way we service our customers. You're welcome to Farmula, the future for distribution on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim, for a well-timed presentation. All right, great. Over to the angels. Who would like to start? Nick, your comments?
Sure, Ibrahim, that was great. Thank you so much for that presentation. A couple of questions. One is, I would think that in the current way that business is conducted, that there are of course probably some personal relationships and an ability to kind of gauge product and sort of establish, an understanding of what you're getting prior to purchase. How do you, and I know you said that samples are an option here, but how do you truly replace that relationship and that buying process in a way that can be translated into like a WhatsApp message?
Sorry, so if I'm getting your question correctly, you're asking how we translate the physical interaction that these customers have with the goods through WhatsApp.
Correct.
Yeah. So one thing that we do is we make sure that every inventory that's sold over WhatsApp first has a picture, right? So it gives them access to what the produce looks like even before they make the purchase. But beyond that, what we've tried to do is to keep our word. It's a market where the churn rate is pretty high because once prices fluctuate, customers simply move to the next person. So what we've tried to do is to ensure that we, whatever we say is what we end up doing. And it's really been helpful with the way we tend to interact with our customers. If we tell you that this is the produce, this is the quality of the produce that you're expecting, it's pretty much what you get. And that's what we've been doing. So, yeah.
Got it. And I would think a part of your value add also is that you're sort of, disconnecting that selection process in the sense that if you're a retailer and you want to buy, let's say, apples, you just put an order in for apples. But are you necessarily buying from your preferred vendor, or are you buying from from your business? In which case, you're making the connection in the back end to whichever producer can sell something at the best value for your margin. How does that work?
Yeah, so basically we provide a direct access to these producers. We have to acquire the inventory, and that's basically what we've been doing now to kickstart our flywheel. Much later in the future, what we're looking at is the fact that a lot of producers will rely on us as a distributor service, as against us having to first off acquire the inventory before being able to sell it to the retailers that we've already onboarded. Have I been able to answer your question?
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. One other thing that's kind of maybe more of like a holistic issue is that I've sort of read about how, for certain farmers that, that run smaller farms, that getting to market can be a challenge because of the fact that, they're just like you can't make the same impression on a marketplace as a larger farm with larger inventory and more resources can. How do you support those smaller farms and more entrepreneurial, farmers that actually want to grow their market share where, of course, price competition is one way to do so, but how do you really promote those new farmers in this ecosystem?
So first off, I mean, the improved margins is the first way that we try help these farmers. And we're currently in talks with Rabobank to be able to provide a service where, based on the historical harvest that these farmers are able to have, they're able to access finance. But as at now, we've not yet gone into that because we're still building up the demand side of our chain. But really, as at now, what we're looking at is better margins in order to be able to onboard these farmers, because if they're to rely on open air markets, they will make much less than they are making with us. So that's what we're doing as at now.
Got it. So just better unit economics, which of course helps. And then I note that on the competition slide, you mentioned a few organizations. I actually connected with an organization called Farmster. I don't know exactly, I think they're based in Kenya, but I think they have a similar approach, right, for just sort of connecting folks using SMS, from the retail side to the actual farm side. What other competitors are there in this universe that we should be aware of as we think about this opportunity, and how are you better than everyone else? Are you thinking of building integrations on top for easier payments or providing financing? Like, what else can you do to grow your presence here?
So first off, as I mentioned, is the fact that we're building these location-specific distribution centers. I think when it comes to a customer, the most important thing for you is, once you want to make a purchase for an item that you have on your mind, you want to be able to access this item. And when you look at products that are readily available in almost every village, you think of maybe like Coca-Cola, for example. One of the things that they've been able to do was to build a very robust distribution system. And that's what we're looking at. We're wondering why it has to be that open air markets are located far away from the businesses that serve customers, right? So we're saying that we can bring these distribution services closer to where customers are. And that's one of our biggest value props. Beyond that is the fact that we're integrating these manually operated distribution centers with tech. right? So this way now we're able to get better access to data and know exactly what foods people are ordering, how much people are willing to pay for these foods and stuff like that. So beyond the fact that we're doing the distribution and the tech, the last is the fact that there are better margins. One of the biggest value props that you're going to give to either a farmer or a retailer is you make more money if you bank with us. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Last question, then I'll let others contribute. Is I noticed that your last round valuation was at $500,000 and your current pre-money is at 4.5 million. What's changed that has caused that significant increase in valuation in your eyes that you can justify that of course that healthier valuation now?
Yeah. So what we're looking at is the ease at which we're able to onboard new customers. As at now, we've been able to onboard 300, and our biggest restriction has been the fact that we've not had sufficient capital in order to satisfy the demands for these customers. And so we know that once we're able to raise, we'll be able to satisfy a larger number of customers, and that's really what we're focusing on for now, to really build up our demand side. So we're looking at a figure of 1,000 retailers by the end of the year. And once we're able to raise them, we'll be able to satisfy these customers' demand and kickstart our flywheel, as I earlier mentioned. And once that's done, then it's going to be easier for us to say, let's expand the reach of our distribution network, where individuals are able to run their own Farmula distributor centers, but then they leverage on our already existing tech infrastructure and our relationship with our farmer partners. So the fact that we're able to move very fast from 0 to 1 is one of the reasons why you're seeing the jump in valuation.
Thank you, Nick, for all those great questions and great responses. Peter, any thoughts from you?
Nick, thanks for doing a thorough job. Ibrahim, that was a really good presentation. Could I ask when you look at the company, who really is your customer, the farmer or the retailer? Do you explain to me why you make that decision?
The retailer is my customer. The reason that I say that is we're trying to drive supply on our chain from the demand end, right? So traditionally what you have is producers produce and then you take it to open air markets. When you begin to look at the amount of waste that happens there, it's on a very large scale. So what we're trying to do now is to say we are driving the supply on the chain by understanding what the demand is. And that's really why we're making the retailers our customers as against the farmers.
And what's the average buy from a retailer?
$100 a week.
Okay.
And there's a related question to that from Remy Fao, who asks, you have 50 customers and you're generating 60,000. How can you explain that? So you have, it sounds like you have a lot of repeat customers then.
Yeah, basically we've not been onboarding in large numbers. We've just tried to keep it fixed because of the capital that we have to be able to satisfy these customers' demands. And that's why we have 50 customers that are resulting in that amount of revenue. However, there are some customers who have ordered more times than others. And what we're looking at is basically the number of active customers that we have on our platform.
Okay.
Okay. Last question is kind of on the partnership side. You say you would like some facilitation on kind of like getting partners. What kind of partners are those? And also, are you leveraging on other startups that are doing maybe cold chain or any other things that instead of you guys raising that money to do that, maybe subcontracting that to somebody who's got that as their core competency?
Yeah, sure. One of the partnerships that we've been looking out for are with supply-focused agri-tech firms. So you're looking at people like Tula, and in Nigeria, you're looking at people like Thrive Agrico Farm Crowdy, who already do a lot of production and facilitation of input for smallholder farmers. By the end of the day, they also rely on open their markets to do their distribution. And we're telling them that we have an alternative service which will give them better margins. So those are one of the partners that we're looking at. Beyond that, we're also looking at branching out into other food produce that goes for that people consume in very large quantities. So, for example, in Nairobi, we've been dealing with potatoes, and we're looking at, okay, how can we onboard more producers of potatoes? Similarly, we're looking at other crops in Nigeria like palm oil and groundnut oil, which is also consumed in very much large quantities, and we're like trying to work with firms that do the production and be able to connect them directly to retailers.
Great, thanks for that. And Bruce, do you have any feedback or comments, questions? Bruce, are you still there? You might be on mute in case you're trying to speak.
So Jim, thanks for that. Ibrahim, thank you for the presentation, very clear.
Thank you.
Bruce, could you speak up or get a little bit closer to your microphone or speak a little bit louder? You're a little quiet. Thank you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
A bit better.
A little bit better, but still a little quiet. Go ahead and we'll do our best.
Give me a second, I'll try to fix it very quickly. Any better?
Not really, but we can still hear you. So go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Ibrahim, I was saying thank you for the presentation. It's very clear. Seen business models that have grown successfully using a similar business model, probably moving different products. So I've seen this work quite well in manufacturing. I think Soko Watch is a very clear example of what you're doing. My question is, with regards to your competitive advantage, what would you consider the competitive advantage of this business? How does it protect from people duplicating your business model?
So for the first part, it's the fact that our competitive advantage is the fact that we don't have to leverage large amounts of capital in order to provide a robust distribution service. What we're looking at doing is franchising it, just the way you're familiar with what Coca-Cola distribution centers look like, where Coca-Cola doesn't actually run these distribution centers, but they make it possible for individuals to do that, right? So once we're able to build our model in a way that other individuals can franchise our service, they'll be able to reach customers through Farmula's, using Farmula's infrastructure. And what I mean by infrastructure is the fact that we're building a last mile delivery service and also our tech, right? So those two factors are, it's like once you've kickstarted it, it's really about a first market mover advantage as against someone who's later to market.
My question on that is, okay, why wouldn't someone like Soko Watch per se effectively do what you're doing? Or could it be easy for them to duplicate what you're doing? Because they seem to have a very similar model.
Yeah, Soko Watch's focus is mainly on the, as you said, manufactured stuff as against food stuff. So think of it more like we are Soko Watch, but for the food industry. Soko Watch doesn't deal with perishable and non-perishable food items. They deal more with flour. They don't do tomatoes. They don't do potatoes. They don't do apples. So the fact that we're building more tools to enable us to do quality assurance and ensure that produce moves fast for food stuff is much different from FMCG. So I don't feel.
Oh no, sorry for interrupting you. So I was going to ask, so are you going to stick towards perishable food goods?
As at now, that's what we're looking at. Most likely in the future, we can partner to ensure that we're doing 100% inventory coverage for retailers that we're serving. So if we're to partner with a service like Soko Watch, then we can say, okay, the retailer that you're serving, we cover the food side, you cover the FMCG side.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to, for us to just slightly go over the revenue model and the margins that are generated. Could you just explain that? I didn't quite get it in the quick presentation.
Yeah, so for, okay, so let's say I was to sell you a sack of potatoes and you were to go to Marikiti to get them. You buy them, say around $28 for a bag, right? But if you are buying it from Farmula, you buy it somewhere around 24. So what we're saying is the savings in between 24 and 28 is $4, and we charge you $2 for it, which is still much cheaper than you would have gotten it at Marikiti. The advantage is the fact that if you placed an order through us, you won't have to go to the market. We'll bring it to you, and it's still at a cheaper cost for us.
Okay, understood. And you're getting this margin advantage from buying in bulk, as
Yes.
okay, understood. Then I wanted to ask, so given how you've set up your business, is it a city by city approach in terms of growth, or is it a countrywide kind of network?
It's a city by city approach. But one thing that we did was we launched in Donholm in Nairobi, and we were really just looking at, okay, what it would look like if we were the ones operating the whole distribution center by ourselves. And we noticed that the margins were good. So we now said, okay, let's explore different markets, because of the fact that we know that consumers eat food differently. So the fact that I'm from Nigeria, my team said, okay, I should come explore what it looks like in Nigeria. So I came to Lagos just before the COVID hit, and we tried out a different model where we leverage on space within already existing retailers. So what you notice is that there are a lot of retailers who have fallow space within their shops. So we're like, okay, we can unlock the power of wholesale within your shop, right? So from these places now, we store and sell, and then we compare the two models at the end of the day, and we're like, okay, we notice that operating this distribution center by ourselves makes more sense. So as against looking at it that we're going to just go countrywide, we know that there are a bit of differences within cities inside one country. There's going to be a difference between Nairobi and Nakuru. So we won't just go countrywide. We'll have to understand before we expand. So it's more citywide than countrywide.
Yeah, and I assume also the margins would be very difficult to maintain if you're doing long distance kind of deliveries. That makes sense. So with regards to where are you actually operating right now in Kenya?
In Donholm as at now.
Okay, so just that area. Okay.
Yeah.
Then maybe a bit of a tougher question. Your valuation. So currently you're at average monthly revenue of about $5,000. So at the end of the year, that's probably going to be about 60K. Or maybe 70, 80K. And your valuation is $4.5 million. So that's quite a big multiple, and probably a multiple that you don't see within this ecosystem. What was the premise behind that?
So as I had earlier mentioned, it's basically because of through the value proposition that we're offering customers, is much easier to onboard them. So it's like we're seeing a pull from the market, right? As against us having to push our value prop. We're not having to say, okay, do you see what we're doing is much better than what you're already experiencing? So the fact that we're able to increase our number significantly within a shorter period of time is the major reason for the valuation at that figure.
So okay, so you're effectively confident that you can grow the revenues of the company significantly and quickly. Okay, what kind of numbers are you thinking about next year? In terms of
we're looking at onboarding up to 2,000 active customers by the end of next year.
2,000.
Right. So as at now we're looking at So as that now we've just onboarded a new sales team. And if not for these issues that we have regarding the NSAS protest, we'll have deployed them on ground to be able to hit our Q4 figures in terms of number of customers that we want to onboard. Now, with 2,000 customers ordering $100 worth of inventory every week, we're looking at somewhere around 200K. per week.
So a relevant question from the audience, from Raj Gulasingham, what's the customer growth rate from month to month then?
As at now, so we've sort of kept it fixed, right? What we tried to do within the last 3 months, so that's from basically within Q3, was to say, okay, we want to increase our number of customers onboarded. So we moved from 50 to 300, right? And then we're looking at, okay, if we're able to service these 300 customers within Q4, then we can begin to increase the numbers. But basically, what's been restricting us the most is the fact that we don't have enough inventory finance to be able to service these customers. And that's why I've sort of kept it at this figure for now.
So you really need trade finance.
Yeah, we do.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for the angels for those great questions. Let's move over to discussion about possible investments. Love to hear your feedback. Nick, would you like to start?
Again.
Sure. Yeah, no, Ibrahim, thank you for the great presentation and also really great responses. It sounds like you really are gearing up for significant growth over the next year, which is really exciting for you. And I'm really excited to see where you go with this. One thing that sort of struck me through the other angels' questions was around how you can kind of cement your footprint here. I started to think about last mile as well, and of course your presence at distribution centers and how else you can kind of grow your product line there. But of course the competition that's also there, is going to be a threat. I also wonder if the retailer market is really sort of the end all and be all, or if there may be other markets for you to tap with the produce, just segment alone. For example, restaurants, hotels, whatever it may be. So I think if you can get this right, and I think if you can build that footprint, establish your relationships in both the retail side and the farmer side, and think of other products to plug into your ecosystem, I think it's pretty exciting. Hopefully those relationships in the retail side are sticky, and you can expand that relationship over time. And I think if you can do this right, that would be great. I also had some sort of questions about the valuation, and I think even with your response, I'd want to dig in a bit deeper to justify it. But assuming that your plans are as you kind of describe them, and your team is great, and I think you present well, I'm confident you'll do very well.
Thank you, Nick.
That means you're going to write a check tomorrow, or maybe next week after you dig in.
Look, I'd want to think about this one a bit more, but yeah, I think it's pretty interesting.
Great, good to hear that. Peter, Bruce.
I'll go first. Ibrahim, this is super exciting. I like. I think one thing that we don't see enough of, and I think your team has the ability to do that, is actually get some really high revenues to justify kind of the valuation, which everybody else is kind of. I think what you're hearing is the valuation is a little higher than most people see, especially at your stage. Which is unfortunate, because kind of like especially in East Africa, teams of certain size, certain revenue, certain timelines start to get kind of like similar valuations. And you should actually probably kind of like just prove to people that you can do this. I think the potatoes part, for me, I understand, since I spend a lot of time kind of in River Road doing potato chips for people going back to school in my younger days. Yeah, I think this is a good one if you can continue getting your revenues up and making sure that your margins stay solid.
Thank you.
So does that mean you'll be pulling out your checkbook, Peter?
I will be talking to Ibrahim on the side. We will talk. Yeah.
Happy to facilitate that discussion. Bruce.
Thanks, Jim. Hello?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Yeah, I think in terms of overall feedback to Ibrahim, this is a strong model. We've seen this model actually work quite well in Africa. There's several companies from Egypt to Nigeria, to talk about Forge, to talk about Tribo, that have business models that are similar with this, maybe with different goods. One thing that I find that I think the team is thinking of, right, is the financing product. As you know, your retailers get to a point where they can't buy more, and providing a way for them to access debt so they can buy more products and sell more. It's good for the ecosystem, generally speaking, but it's also it will push your growth as a company. And there are a lot of funds that are looking to invest in such financing products. So with that, I think you're really on the money, and you can get some very good financing options. Maybe looking at the kind of guys like BFA would be potentially interested, guys like Kona and so on. So I think this business, in terms of how it's structured, definitely can get the right kind of financing to help it grow. I think maybe at a certain time, given it's a perishable good, you probably need to think about things like frozen or fridging or stores or refrigerated facilities and so on. And that tends to be quite capex heavy. So I think it would be interesting to see how your team think around that. And then in terms of the valuation, to be honest, I still think it's steep. I think with local investors, it will be difficult to get at that. But I think at an appropriate valuation, I think that you'll be able to get it to close.
So is it fair to say this is something that Chandaria Capital may look at, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, definitely look at this.
Okay, good. And I think also from my side, from the untapped side, I think there's some interesting opportunities for trade finance and potentially, as Bruce had mentioned, CapEx financing. So I'd like to be involved in that discussion with perhaps the angels here and see if there's a role to play for untapped as well. So congratulations, Ibrahim, for a great presentation and great answers. Sounds like positive results. And the public view seems to be quite positive as well. Looks like more than or close to 90% of the audience would do something in terms of investment. So congratulations, Ibrahim, job well done. And best of luck to your company. And also regards to Vivian, the CEO, thanks for filling in the last minute for her, and our condolences to her family.
All right, then thank you very much, Jim.
Great, thank you very much. Well, let's move on over to Kweza.
Good evening, everybody. Let me just share my screen. Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Ropa. I am the co-founder and CEO of Quasa Technologies. We are a last mile distribution solution for informal retail. So 90% of retail in Africa still looks something like this. And in South Africa, at least 40% of all food spend in the economy is still done at these establishments. Why is this important? Well, this sector supports the livelihoods of millions across the continent, including my family at a point in time. However, these informal traders have challenges. This is Sandile. On a typical day when Sandile needs to restock for his store, he would need to visit multiple suppliers and search for the best price. If he chooses not to do that, he risks losing anything between 10 to 15% on his order. And on top of that, he pays a premium for his delivery because he's buying alone. So Sandile has three main problems. He's losing time, he has low buying power, as well as limited visibility to the best price. Now, we provide a service that enables informal traders to order their products and receive delivery directly to store. At its core, our solution aggregates pricing at a wholesale level, ensuring that each time our customers order via our mobile application, they're getting the best price. We then facilitate delivery directly to store through our third-party delivery drivers. There is an estimated 95,600 spazas in South Africa, and we believe we can capture 20% of this market, valued at about 183 million. This is based on each customer ordering an average basket of $320 at least 2.5 times a month. We are currently charging a 2% commission on each and every order, as well as a $6 flat delivery fee. This has been great for our testing and initial pilot, but we really want to do more. And in order to achieve this, we're looking to shift to a warehousing model, which will help us have greater control over our operations and increase our margins to between 10 to 15%. And through this, we'll also be able to provide market data and insights as an additional revenue stream. So they are competitors in the market, as in any great market, and our main competitors being Zande, Shopit, and Vuleka. At the core, we are all distributing to informal, but beyond that, Zande and Vuleka provide working capital, whilst Shopit focuses more on data. Now we're doing all of this, and on top of that, we're ensuring that our customers get the most reliable service where they get their deliveries on time and in full. 485 times, our 66 customers have said yes to our service, each time ordering an average basket of 409, and we've managed to retain at least 65% of our base since the beginning. So in terms of revenue, we've enjoyed a constant growth in revenue over the last 4 quarters. And by 2021, we're looking to onboard an additional 450 customers, bringing in a revenue of about 951,000. By 2022, an additional 1,500, bringing our revenue to about 7.5 million. And we anticipate to break even by 2022. So what we're asking for is we're looking for strategic partners who can give us route to market, as well as partnerships, as well as 450,000 to achieve 2 main goals: shift to our warehousing model, as well as expand our customer base. So the big question is, why us? Why Kweza? Well, we are a passionate team, passionate about the growth of small business. We are an experienced team, having worked across fintech and payments, retail, logistics, supply chain. We've built and managed several products, and we believe we're equipped to solve this challenge. So why not join us as we help formalize, digitize, and grow the informal retail space? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ropa. I have to say that was a very crisp and concise presentation, and one of the few times that you finished early. So very.
Well, I hope you heard me.
Yes, we absolutely did. Over to the angels. Peter, Bruce, would one of you guys like to start first?
Can I also introduce my co-founder, who's
yes, please.
Please. So Becky is actually here as well.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Wonderful. All right. So, Bruce, would you like to go first with some comments or feedback?
Yeah. Ropa, thank you for that presentation. Very strong presentation. One thing that really caught my eye to start with was your average basket size of $450, which I thought was kind of amazing. Why is it so high? Within East Africa, a shop of a similar makeup wouldn't be buying that much in one go.
So what we've seen from our customers is that most of them order sort of on a bi-weekly cycle. And most of the goods that they tend to order tend to be sort of commodities and sort of high value products. One of the products we don't have at the moment is cigarettes. But we do see sort of baseline commodities, which is cake flour, maize meal, and also 2-liter cold drinks. The cake flour and maize meal are mainly ordered sort of in 12.5 kg sort of pack sizes. So that's one of the things that generally helps drive up the basket size, as most of their customers prefer to sort of buy sort of on a monthly or bi-weekly basis after they get paid, whether it's their grants or their salaries at the end of the month. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Cheers, thanks for that. And you have a flat delivery fee, which tends to be unpopular with similar kind of business models in Africa. I just wanted to understand the thinking around that.
So because at the moment we source from wholesalers who are currently present in the market, what we found was that including the delivery fee within the margin made us price uncompetitive. But what we managed to sort of convey to the customers is that what they were spending with their own sort of vehicles to actually go to the warehouse or the wholesaler to go and buy the food or the stock that they were buying was almost 300 Rand that they would pay someone individually. So what we do is we've managed, because we buy in bulk and we actually deliver sort of 2 or 3 orders on a vehicle, we consolidate the orders on a vehicle and then we actually charge them less than what they would pay to rent a bakkie or a vehicle independently themselves. So I think in the way that we proposed it and sold it to the customers, we've actually managed to convey that we are actually delivering some value and savings on that delivery fee to them, which has kind of helped I think we are getting to a point though where as our sort of reach expands, that we might need to reconsider that in the interim before we shift to the warehouse model to a more variable rate. But again, that's something that we'll do with testing and engagement with our customers before we make that shift. Yeah.
So right now, you deliver directly from the manufacturer to the retailer?
So from the wholesalers to the retailer. So the way the market is structured at the moment is that we have the manufacturers like Tiger Brands, Unilever, and Premier Foods. They actually currently sell to wholesalers, and then we buy from those wholesalers and then deliver to the brands. So we aggregate pricing from wholesalers at present.
So I guess your long-term vision would be to one day, once you have enough volume, get the goods directly from the manufacturers and therefore give yourself more margin.
Exactly. So that's the reason for the shift to the new model, is that most of the brands themselves have hurdle rates in terms of how much you should be buying before you can buy direct from them. So we are starting to approach that. So I think that's where now we can actually actively engage them to then buy direct from them. So we had initial discussions prior to COVID and sort of kept in touch with the brands, but we'll be accelerating those discussions as we head into the new year.
So how long do you think it will be until you get to that point?
So what we're projecting at the moment is at least by sort of April, May, that we believe that we should have an agreement in place to be able to start buying direct from the brands. Ideally, what we want is at least one major anchor brand, and then we can pull in smaller brands in addition to that.
Cool. And one more question. I see you guys are using third-party parties to deliver your goods. Have you thought about having your own fleet, and why did you decide third party? I guess third party means less expenditure on CapEx, but I guess it could also be quite costly at the same time, effectively leasing delivery machinery.
Yeah, I think from this perspective, I think more of the decision was more driven more than just keeping our infrastructure asset light. But I think even in the long term, I think at least in South Africa, we have companies that are very similar to Sendi, who we've also engaged, that we believe that could actually deliver a very cost-effective delivery solution. So owning the actual fleets still wouldn't be in our plan. But what we intend to do is, as part of the margins that we negotiate with the brands, is include a cost to distribution based on the volume of the product that will be distributed and the weight of the product that will be distributed or comes through our network. And obviously then, depending on the vehicle configurations that we have, the actual cost that it will take to serve the end consumer.
Cool. Cheers for that. I think I'll leave it to the other angels to ask a few questions.
Thank you, Bruce. Peter?
Hey guys, thank you. That was a great presentation. I like this model. Can you tell us kind of this geographic expansion, what are you thinking about that, and how fast and where?
Okay, so I think initially what we're looking to do is we're looking to expand to several townships. So at the moment we are predominantly in a township called Soweto. So we initially are going to expand from a province level. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that same terminology across board, but so within a province, and then thereafter we will then visit several more provinces. So like the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape are sort of our main targets, and that's probably over the next 2 years, because we do think that there is significant market to still be captured within South Africa. And then thereafter, we will consider going sort of expanding within Southern Africa initially. So the likes of Zimbabwe, and take it from there. And then, I think once we've actually built and tested it in several markets within Southern Africa, we can definitely consider going beyond that into East or West Africa.
Thank you for that answer. Yes, we were colonized too in Kenya, so we know provinces quite well. Talk to me about your year 5. Like, if you guys are dreaming big, where do you see yourself? Like beyond what we are talking about right now.
Right. So I think one of the things that we've seen in engaging with our customers is that spaza shops, or dukas as they're known in East Africa, have a lot of potential to service the greater community at large. One of the pilot projects we ran at the beginning of our lockdown here in April, May, was we managed to deliver 300 food parcels through our network to families within Soweto, within the Soweto area. So what we did is we built basically a simple USSD voucher infrastructure where we issued out vouchers to people's cell phone numbers. They would respond with their ID number. And basically go and claim their voucher at the spaza shop. The spaza shop would then give them the stock that was in their hamper, and then they would claim it, and then that voucher that they were given would be verified by us. So I think for us, what we see Kweza as is more of a platform to service the wider community through the spaza shops. So that means increasing our average revenue per customer by offering things like insurance to the spaza shop owners, the community at large, helping with cash collections and helping to digitize the cash that the spaza shops and the dukas are actually currently using. As we foresee that with the growth of things like MTN mobile money and other things in South Africa, which maybe has not taken off as much as in Kenya, we believe we can play a role in that as well.
There's a related question from Leah Nuadati or Duati. Why haven't you integrated digital payments, considering the fact that mobile money is so prevalent?
Yes.
So I think that's a very interesting question. So the market largely transacts in cash. Digital, has not really taken off in South Africa as of yet. So we've really been trying to think around solutions to actually sort of solve that cash problem. Initially, what we have done now is that we are allowing our customers to make use of infrastructure that's around them. So they can now deposit at other supermarkets around the area. We're hoping we can also get into talks with probably service stations that are around as well as deposit points initially. But I think, like Becky mentioned, as a long-term play, we're actually looking to use the spaza shops themselves as potentially distribution deposit points for cash. So at the moment, I think we are actually looking to solve the actual cash problem, whilst we hope that there'll be better penetration for digital forms of payments.
So yeah, just sort of linked to that as well. I think in Kenya, M-Pesa is very widely distributed, but in South Africa, the largest mobile money provider is MTN, and they only just recently passed 1 million users in South Africa, I think about 3 months ago. So I think the markets are just very, very different in terms of how cash moves in South Africa and Kenya and other areas. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that answer, and thanks to Leah for the question. Peter, anything else, or should we move over to?
Yeah, just one last question. So as you kind of like are trying to figure out all these different business models, who do you say is your main customer and why? Now or in the long term?
So I'd say our main customer right now is definitely the spaza shop, and I think our primary focus is to continue to deliver value to the spaza shop. I think once we reach a customer base of about 500, then I think our focus can shift a little bit towards the brands, because then we're able to provide much more meaningful data around the way stock moves in the spaza shop, buying patterns of different spaza shops and different communities. So I think initially, to begin with now, I think the main focus is definitely the spaza shop. But as we grow our customer base and data becomes data will play more of a role in servicing the brands. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks for that, Nick.
Thanks, Jim. Roba, amazing presentation, super clear, super crisp, amazing team as well. Congrats on all the progress so far. You guys have made great headway. One question I had sort of early on in your presentation was relating to the fact that, there is obviously competition in this space. And I think this is like a really hot space, right? Like I think Flipkart has set a tone for like the world on like what's possible for like, last mile to kind of service retailers through FMCG products. You're at 65 customers right now. And I imagine that, the first few customers were probably the hardest to win over. how do you see yourself really scaling? Like how do you make this value proposition super crisp and clear to convert your next 100 customers?
Okay, so in terms of that, so we do have three main strategies that we're looking to sort of get additional customers. So firstly, building agent networks, where we will actually use those people from within the community to actually acquire more customers. Partnerships will also play a critical role. We've had some initial conversations with the likes of Flash, who already have a wide reach in terms of the Spaza economy. And finally, we're also looking to use referrals. So at least 15% of our customer base has been organic sales so far. We've also seen that there are some important anchor customers within our customer base who are influential within the space. And we're actually looking to use these and leverage their connections within the communities to acquire more customers. So I think those are like really the three main ways we're looking to really expand and accelerate our growth.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And how, just based on the fact that, you're sort of already in a market where there's competition, it seems like these relationships aren't necessarily the stickiest with providers like yourselves, at least today. How do you make that relationship stickier? I mean, one thought I had was, well, first of all, I'm a part of a group called Rally Cap, and it's comprised of some of, I think, the most ambitious and best leaders in the fintech space. And through that relationship, I've learned a ton about fintech. And it seems like here there could be a really great angle to offer financing for your end customers, which to me seems like a great way to kind of build stickiness, right? Because then they're kind of locked in and they get used to sort of, supporting their margins with your, your ability to kind of serve them product without necessarily collecting payment on day one. Are there other ways, including that perhaps, that you're thinking of making this relationship stickier with yourselves relative to your competition?
So we do offer at the moment sort of 10 days to pay on orders. So at least on that perspective, I think that's been one of the main drivers in sort of the retention rate that we have with our current customer base. But I think what we are seeing is that we definitely need to sort of deliver more value for the customers beyond just the stock that they order. A lot of feedback that we are getting is that from the customers is that obviously security tends to be a really big issue for them. So what we're looking at doing is partnering with security companies to actually ensure that these guys get discounted rates. So there's a company called Namola who we engaged as well, who basically have a panic button solution that affords that will basically allow armed response or the nearest armed responder, regardless of whichever security company they work for, as long as they're on the Namola platform, to be able to respond to any situation that occurs at the store. So I think strategic partnerships that will allow us to deliver value without necessarily doing the work ourselves, I think would be definitely key in being able to retain our customers, because like you said, the first port of call for any of our customers is price. So I think first you got to be price competitive, and if you're price competitive, the next thing they look at is what are these people giving me in addition to the value that they're offering.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that, we also spend quite some time just trying to understand really what additional products our customers would want. And I think a common story that we found was that a lot of them sort of invest at least 10 to 15 years of their lives in these shops. And at the end of it, they find that they actually don't have anything. So if anything tragic happens, like now COVID happened, a lot of them have had to slow down on business significantly because they had to use that capital they had for the business. So it's really sort of innovating around ways we can actually then help them actually invest or add savings within their product. So this is obviously an ambitious long-term goal, but I think for us, it's also trying to add value really to the individual themselves. Got it.
Great answers. Thank you for that. We talked about scaling, beyond South Africa, for example, and also, of course, strengthening relationships with the actual, manufacturers or perhaps, first-tier distributors for certain FMCG products. How does that scale up across geographies affect those relationships? Can you rely on, a single set of relationships for your scale up, or do you need to now establish additional relationships in each geography?
So I think at least with some companies, they operate across the continent, but there are some companies like Tiger Brands who have a very huge presence sort of in Southern Africa more than anything else. But I think partnering with those brands to scale up, and I think we've seen that with Sokowatch, as they scaled across East Africa, the brands were more than happy to sort of walk on that journey with them. And I think that's something that I think we would definitely be looking to emulate. There's definitely still potential in the market, I think, especially within Southern Africa. But I think it's about if we can grow with the brands, definitely that's something we would love to do.
Yeah. And I think right now we're currently working on a partnership with one of the major brands in South Africa. We're just finalizing that. But I think that initially will give us at least reach across the country itself. So I think that's a good starting point for us initially.
Got it. Perfect. This last point is not really a question, more sort of an observation on other markets. I'm probably least familiar with the African ecosystem as an angel here today. But one thing I have observed from other markets, for example, in India, is joint investment by Facebook and a predominant company in India called Reliance, and a company called Jio that actually spun out of Reliance, I believe. And what they're basically trying to do is understand that in a fragmented market like India, you can't offer something like an Amazon Prime, right? It just is almost impossible. But if you have a footprint that includes local retailers everywhere, maybe you can stock like the most coveted items at those local levels and deliver them more quickly. Not just like the traditional FMCG products, but also like electronics and other goods. And I imagine that, as you kind of build your business, there could be an interesting angle to kind of offer products that the traditional retailer would never carry, but that local consumers would want to buy and be that proxy of like an Amazon. Is that something you've thought about, and how does that play into your growth plans?
So I think at this stage, it's probably something that maybe we haven't thought about sort of very deeply. But one thing we have looked at is sort of how do we enable smaller brands to sort of get better visibility and penetration in the townships. So I think our strategy has sort of mainly been focused around, okay, we have these big brands that people know, but how can we then facilitate smaller companies, sort of locally made and manufactured brands of maize meal or cold drinks? I think we've seen growth of brands like Mofire and Burn here in South Africa, as well as Switch. But how can we facilitate those brands to sort of grow within the market? So I think we've thought about it maybe from a brand level in terms of the current products that we supply. But I think it's something that we should definitely consider once we sort of expand maybe into other locations and we sort of have that reach here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nick, for the great questions and the great responses. Now over to the angels for feedback on investments. Bruce, Peter, Nick, what are your thoughts?
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for the presentation. I've been impressed. The rate of revenue growth is considerable. The business model is straightforward, makes sense. There's definitely value in it. As you said, you're entering into a competitive market. So it'll be important to see if your business model comes out on top. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm very impressed. And one thing I might not be wise to say, but I think the valuation makes good value for money. Yeah. So that's my comments.
Thanks, Bruce.
Great. Thanks
I
a
agree
lot
with
for
Bruce.
that, Bruce.
Yeah, no, I kind of share your sentiment, Bruce. Really, really impressed. I didn't want to say it. The valuation is very fair. I think. Yeah, great job. I'm really excited to see what you guys do, and yeah, you can count us interested.
Thank you very much.
Great. So both Nick and Bruce, you guys are both pulling out your checkbooks later this afternoon then.
Hey
Great.
guys, I really like.
And you too, Peter, right? Yeah, it was a bad joke. Go on, Peter, please.
I thought I got an out. I really like the presentation. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll agree with Bruce and Nick, and not on the valuation side. It's kind of like the ability for a team to execute. That is something that I think your team can really have a good go at it. I really like crowded places because it means there is actually a market, and so I think what I would encourage you guys to do is just kind of go out there, hunker down, get more clients, and prove to everybody else that this is the team to back. Because I think the market is quite large. Yeah, I'm really proud of you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Great. Well, sounds like there's some really interesting feedback from everybody. And I would say for myself on a personal level and potentially with Untapped as well, I'd like to be involved in those discussions as well. As Bruce has mentioned, this is a very, very crowded space. This is obviously a problem that absolutely needs to be solved. And as Peter mentioned, it's all about execution. So having seen you guys get so far with so little is very encouraging. So I definitely want to be part of those discussions, and potentially we might be able to do something on the working capital side as well with Untapped.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you. And let me share the poll with everybody, the public results. And as you can see, I don't think Bruce, Nick, Peter, and I were alone in that sentiment. I think over close to over 90% would be willing to put some money in, with over 50% willing to do a significant amount. So congratulations on a really good public reaction and good feedback from the angels as well.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, guys.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time here this week. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this week's session. Please don't forget to join us next week for Nestcast Live. We're going to talk about how to get more people like Peter and Bruce involved in investing in startups, i.e. local investors and local capital in local companies. And we'll have a distinguished panel of various investors as well as entrepreneurs on that panel. And the week after that, we will be hosting another session with Sunkalp as part of the Sunkalp Global Conference to feature a couple of very impactful companies from Africa. So with that, thanks everybody for your time, and hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim. Well done, guys. See you next week. Bye, guys.
All right, then.
Bye, everyone.